be National Grammar Day. I get it, but we still have to be able to communicate, you know? So there's that. Okay. If you didn't take your test from yesterday, make sure you get that done soon. We are going to start today. Actually, hold on before I start that. Okay. So I have updated the grade book with your homework packets. If you turn in your homework packets, that was out of 9 points. Your formative have been corrected and put in the grade book, and then the quick solve was worth 1 point because the answers were filled out online. So I'll give you 1 point. That was just did it or not did it kind of a thing. With formatives going forward, we're going to tweak. I know we just tweaked how we did it, but we're going to tweak it again because it'll still be do the full corrections page, you get full credit back. Okay? The difference is now if you do the full corrections page, we're going to give you whatever score you get on the corrections page. Okay? What happened yesterday was people turned in, like, let's say they got number 1 wrong. They did the full correction page, but then they got, like, number 3 wrong. Okay? Because they didn't check their answer. They just were worried about the number 1 that they got wrong. So yesterday I gave it to you, but going forward now, whatever score you get on the corrections page, if you do the full corrections page, that's the grade in the form. Okay? If you only do the ones that you got wrong, that's still half points. Okay? So there's that. We're going to start today. It's the section 6.6 out of the old textbook that we don't use anymore. We went away from doing textbooks. It is complex numbers. Okay? Right, so we're going to do a little refresher of I. You will need out the sheet that you picked up when you came in. That's for later. So push that to the side. You need out your notebook for taking notes on this stuff. Okay? I also remind you that not this week Friday, but next week Friday is Pie Day, and that is all we're going to do on that day. Okay? We are just going to eat pie that day, so make sure you bring in pies. Well, see, you have to be here probably to learn. We've talked about it every day for the last, like, 2 weeks.
Yeah, I came in, the first thing they go is, oh, we don't have
Oh, I have ears. Yeah.
You can hear us.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's why. That's why I said.
Oh, I see. Oh,
Yeah.
I see.
All right. So let's talk about I. Okay? You extensively talked about I in Algebra 2. Okay? And so this is just a refresher. We're going to have imaginary numbers. We're going to have 3 different forms of imaginary numbers. Okay? One of the forms you've already seen, but we're going to actually teach you what the actual name of it is today, and then go forward from that. Okay? So the big concept in imaginary numbers is that I is equal to the square root of -1. The reason that we have imaginary numbers, or the reason that we need to have imaginary numbers, is because if I have on a regular Cartesian coordinate plane, the xy plane, if I have on there any function, the solutions to that function are where that function crosses the x-axis. Okay? Those are the answers, the solutions, the roots, the zeros. That's it. Yep, zeros of it. Okay? If I have a function that does not cross the x-axis. It's still a function. We need to have those zeros, those roots, those answers, those solutions, whatever you want to call it. Okay? And that's where imaginary numbers come in, because it doesn't cross, so we can't just say 7 is the root here. Okay? We have to go into the imaginary world in order to do that. Okay? So if I is equal to the square root of -1, then I squared would be equal to -1. Okay? I is one of those kind of crazy, goofy numbers that we have in math. So I is equal to I. Okay? I squared, we just said, was equal to -1. I cubed. What's I cubed? -I. I cubed is -I. Because it's I times I squared, and I squared is -1. So this is really I times -1. So it's -I. I to the 4th power is how much? +1? Because it's I squared times I squared, which is -1 times -1, which is +1. What is I to the 5th? I to the 5th goes back to I, just I. So if you are given something along the lines of I to the 63rd power, there is no one way to figure out what that simplifies down to. Okay? It's going to simplify down to one of those 4. When you're dealing with the powers of I, your final answer can only be I, -1, -I, or +1. That's it. That's your 4 choices. Okay? Now, I'm not saying that any one particular way to figure this out is the best. Okay? In my brain, what I do is I take 63 and I do the old school long division by 4, because there's 4 positions here on the I, or there's 4 answers or possibilities for I. So in my brain, I just do a quick one. 4 goes into 6 once with a remainder of 2. 4 goes into 23 5 times with a remainder of 3. Okay? Just do old school long division. If you need to actually write it out, I just do it in my head. 4 into 6, remainder of 2, then 4 into 23, remainder of 3. Okay? And this is the number then that I look at. So it's in the 3rd position, 1, 2, 3. So this would be -I. Okay? Whichever method you choose for that, that's you. That's on you. If you want to write out all of there'd be 15 pairs of 4. Like I to the 4th, 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 then you still have I. Okay? Alright? If you want to do that, that's fine. A lot of writing that way, but however you do it is how it works out. Okay? In life, there are real numbers. 7 is a real number. next week Friday, if you want to have 7 pieces of pie, you have that ability because 7 is a real number. Okay? Okay? Negative 3i is an imaginary number. Okay? You can't have negative 3i pieces of candy. Okay? Okay? So that's an imaginary number. If we combine those two, okay, 7 minus 3i is a complex number. Okay? A complex number has a real part and an imaginary part. So 7 is a real number, but 7 plus 0i is now a complex number. They mean exactly the same thing. Okay? Next Friday, you can have 7 plus 0i pieces of cake, or pieces of pie, excuse me, not cake. What am I saying? Pie day, not cake day. Okay? Right? They mean the same thing. Okay? Just one is written in the real number form, one is written in complex number form. Both parts must be there if we say, give us the complex form of a number. Okay? Negative 3i is imaginary. 0 minus 3i is complex. Okay? Imaginary numbers and real numbers can be written as complex numbers. Complex numbers can't. Complex numbers are just complex. Okay? We are able to do the 4 basic mathematical operations with complex, imaginary, and real numbers. Those are adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. Okay? So you've done most of those before, so this is just a refresher for that. So when we're adding, we're going to add our 2 real parts together. And then we add our 2 imaginary parts together. Actually, here, I'm going to write it as this. Two plus 5 is 7. 3i minus 10i is negative 7i. So my complex number is 7 minus 7i. Helpful hint, put a little curly Q on your eyes, or somehow distinguish them. Put them maybe in italics or something like, on a slant, if you will, on your paper, just so you don't get them confused with the number 1. Okay? So, but that's a you call, not a me call, on how to do that. Okay? As long as you understand what the I is that we're talking about. Okay? Any questions on addition? Subtraction is just adding the invert, or adding the opposite, I should say. So this would be 2 minus 5 and 3i minus a negative 10i. 2 minus 5 is negative 3. 3i minus a negative 10i is 13. Good on that one. Okay. Multiplication. Complex numbers are binomials. Okay. So when we are multiplying complex numbers together, we have to either double distribute or FOIL. I grew up with it being called FOIL. Okay. All right. First outers, inners last. Okay. It's the same as double distributing. Okay. 2 times 5 is 10. That's my first. 2 times negative 10 is negative 20i. That's my outers. 3i times 5 is 15i. That's my inners. 3i times negative 10i is negative 30i squared. That's my last. Before we go about combining our like terms, remembering the fact that I squared is negative 1, negative 30i squared then would be positive 30 there. 10 plus 30 is 40. Negative 20i plus 15i is negative 5i. Good on that one. Okay. Division can come in either form, okay? But you want it in the right form. Okay? You want it as a fraction. Because just like with radicals and us not wanting to have a radical in the denominator, we don't want to have an I in the denominator. We will be rationalizing our denominators for I this time. Okay? And we do that by multiplying by the conjugate of the denominator. Keep the numbers the same in the same order, but just flip the operation. Okay? Okay? So we keep the numbers in the same order as the denominator, and we just change the operation to its opposite. To keep the value of this complex number the same, then we have to multiply by 1, so we have to multiply by the same thing on the top. And now again, it becomes a double distributive on both. Okay? So 2 times 5 is 2 times 5 is 10. 2 times 10i is 20i. 3 times 5 is 15i. 3i times 10i is 30. on the denominator. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 10i is 50i. Oh, sorry, yes, I forgot the square. I said it, I just forgot to write it. Negative 10i times 5 is negative 50i. Negative 10i times positive 10i is negative 100i squared. I squared again is negative 1. So positive 30i squared is really negative 30. Negative 100i squared is really positive 100. So this simplifies to be 10 minus 30 is negative 20. 20 plus, or 20i plus 15i is 35i. 25 plus 100 is 125. 50i minus 50i is 0. So it's just 125 on the bottom. Is there a number that can go into all three of those digits? 5. Okay. So we should reduce them. Negative 20 divided by 5 is negative 4. 35 divided by 5 is 7. 125 divided by 5 is 25. Okay. If we are asking for your answer to be in complex form, okay, that would not work. That is not complex form. Okay. The complex form of this would be negative 4 over 25 plus 7 25ths i. Okay. If we don't ask for it in complex form, if we're just asking you to simplify, then that top one is okay. Okay? But if we are specifically asking for it in complex form, which in this unit we will be specifically asking for it in complex form because that's the title of the unit, okay? Then we want it in that section. Okay? Okay? You now have the rest of the time, so I'm giving you a half an hour to work on the white worksheet that you picked up when you came in. There is an answer key located up here on the stool. There's also an answer key in the Diamond Elite seating area because they get all of the perks. Okay.